Welcome back, everybody, to the next episode of the Gathering Guide series. So today is going to be pretty straightforward. We are going to be grinding to get these tier 4 tools, at least skinning, but I'm also going to be shooting for ore and fiber. We're going to be doing it in the open world unless we find mists to hop into that are enchanted. And we're going to be upgrading some of our current gear right now. So we can't use tier 4 tools yet. Obviously, that's what we're grinding for. But in the long term, we are going to be wanting to use the dual swords. So we are going to, if I make sure that's spelled right, buy the tier 4.1 dual swords. So 4.1s at outstanding, super cheap. And that is also going to get rid of the need for a torch. So you pick your ability. Since we're going for skinning, we want the more AoE based one. We're going to keep the swing. Let's see what this does. This is an interrupt ability, which could be useful for some of the more advanced things that give you like bleeds, like the wolves or the hyenas later on. And we'll get into those when we go into the Blackstone Gathering, when we get to that part of the guide. But we're not quite there yet, so we're not going to worry about that. So now we can sell the broadsword and the torch. So repair these. Get those both on the market, and at least the torch should sell fairly quickly. Now, I'm thinking we're going to keep our transport ox. There's two trade-offs, or there's a trade-off here. So I'm thinking we keep the ox because as much as I want the stag is much faster, but it also carries significantly less. So here you see it has the passive, that is 252 kilograms, which is not very much, whereas the Transport Ox has the active of 1,837 kilograms to max load. So I think we're going to stick with the Ox, especially because I want to just stay out there. I don't want to waste time running back and forth to the marketplace, dropping everything off into a chest or trying to sell it all. So we're going to stick with the Ox, which runs a little bit slower, but it does carry a significant amount more weight, which is good because we're going to be just powering straight for our first tier 4 tool. And along the way, I'll be giving out advice, I'll be giving out tips that I've picked up through my time as an endgame gatherer. Now, as you can see, we have our pork pies, which increase our gathering yield by 15%, as well as our max load by 30%. So that way, if we do wander out of range or anything like that, we're not too terribly over encumbered, and that 15% gathering yield always comes in handy.
Got everything?
So let's find where my mount is, and we'll get right out there. Now, up at the top, you can see the total time that we've spent getting to the point that we're at, which has only been about an hour and a half, and then, of course, the session time for this specific session. So most of this session is going to be just focused on gathering, so it's going to be sped up and slowed down at times when I have advice to give out. If you have any specific questions, always feel free to ask away in the comments down below. But since we're looking for tier 3 and tier 4, we're going to go into, let's go into Long March down here. It's a tier 4 zone. We're looking for skinning, fiber, and ore. And as soon as we get out into the zone, I will start the timer. It may lose its color, but let's hope not. Bit of technical difficulties. Give me 1 second. Try to figure out why the timer is not starting. Alright, it was starting because I forgot what the keybind was specifically. That's my bad. Now this right here, 4-3 skin. We're not going to be able to, I'm going to show this, we're not going to be able to gather this. This is a giant stag for 4-3, but we can't get it because we only have a tier 3 tool. Now, to recap, the way tools work is you can gather maximum 1 tier above. So tier 3s can gather tier 4 flats, but any enchantment counts as 1 tier above that. So 4, 1, 2, or 3 still is higher than what 4 flat would count towards these tier 3 tools. I hope that made sense. So again, we're going to go back down there. I just wanted to make sure I had the opportunity to show that before somebody else got that 4-3. It's very sad to see that we can't get it right now. I am disheartened. Now, my advice when you're gathering is to get premium as soon as possible. Gathering, it definitely requires premium. I wouldn't say requires premium, but you are missing out on a lot of advancement and profits by not having premium. I want it to get premium, at least the 7-day premium, to showcase the buff, but I realize that that may not be too realistic for most people at this stage in their gathering journey, so I didn't want to set up unrealistic expectations this early on in the guide. Now keep in mind, you do also want to be leveling your combat abilities, because the stronger your weapons are, the faster you'll be able to kill things in the roads, in the black zone, and in the open world. Or, well, in the mist, my bad. Now, depending on which environment you're in and what you're looking for, you can usually tell where certain resources are going to be. So, for example, if you are looking for fiber, you're going to find a lot of fiber around these bodies of water. So, small ponds, these large ponds or lakes, not so much by the ocean. You're going to be looking for quote-unquote freshwater environments. Or you're going to find a lot near these black spots or these dark spots on the map. These are stone structures or like geographic formations. Now, another reason, as we've mentioned in previous guides, that you want to get premium as soon as you possibly can is because you get learning points, 30 learning points every day with premium. And those are going to come in handy when you're using the auto learn function, just like we are right now. Now, when you're out in the blue zone, there are more efficient weapons to use to gather. But since blue zone gathering is not our end goal, and the point of these guides is to show a full progression from safe zone all the way to black zone gathering, we're starting with the tool or with the weapon that's going to make the most sense in the long run, which for us is dual swords. Dual swords is the epitome of the meta gathering weapon, besides maybe the bloodletter, in order to showcase escapability and damage potential. Now remember, when you're gathering skin, the differentiation between what is a node and what is a mob. Everything that isn't a cat, anything that isn't one of the cougars, is considered a node. So it will gather slower and have the potential to not respawn with full stacks. The cats are considered a mob, so you will gather them faster, and unless I'm mistaken, which I don't think I am, they should always respawn with full stacks. Now, when you're out fighting NPC enemies, we saw that that guy, he was glowing. This guy's glowing with a golden circle around him. So he's even stronger on his own. So if I were to want to fight this guy, I would probably take off the normal dude first. So that way I don't have two people chipping away at my damage. And then, of course, you want to get your bonus. So grab that. Now, out in the safe zone, gathering is all about speed. How fast can you kill mobs? How fast can you gather things? Because as we can see, there is a lot of competition. And again, the reason it's very important to level up your weapon and armor is because it gives you IP bonuses. So higher IP bonuses means faster killing. And not just faster killing on NPC mobs, but also in places like the roads on the aspects. Now, when I'm out gathering for profit, one thing I like to do is always know the total cost of your tools. So that way you can always keep a rough estimate of exactly how much you make. Now, I didn't do that before we started here because we're not gathering for profit, we're gathering for development. But if we wanted to, let's see, 730, 426, so let's raise that to about 1100, 1300, I will raise that to about 1400, and then 1700. So we'll say 1800. And we've got an estimated value in the inventory of 38. So take away 1800 and we're looking at 37.1 in profit, which you would think, oh, that's not too much. But also when you're starting out, that's a whole third of your way to your first 100,000. Now, as I mentioned, swords are not the most efficient weapon to safe zone gather, as most melee isn't. And as you can see, the reason why is because I have to walk to each individual mob to tag it. Whereas if I was using a range like a fire staff or a bow, I would be able to sit in the middle, just switch targets, and use my range ability to drag everything towards me. So if you plan on staying in a completely safe gathering arc, which I really don't recommend, develop, learn how to use the black zone, learn how to use the roads, the mists, learn how to gather in all the zones, develop yourself. But if you do choose to plan, or if you do plan to choose on staying in the safe zone for gathering, ranged weapons are going to be better suited for this environment. Reputation is something that you can see in your stats. So up at the top, you right click, that will open your player menu, and you come down to stats. Your reputation is right here. And then if you click the little info, it tells you exactly what reputation, like what the requirements are, what it means, and what zones you can access. So reputation increases by doing non-lethal stuff, and it decreases by doing PvP. And if you become dreaded, you can only go into black zone. So you can't even set foot in safe zone, either blue or yellow or red zone. Now, nefarious, villainous, infamous, that just prevents you from setting foot in blue zone. So keep that in mind depending on your playstyle. When it does come to gathering, there are a couple different ways that you can tackle it. The way that we're doing it is obviously tackling 3 different materials at the same time. An alternative way that you can do it is completely focus on one material. Laser focus that. And to showcase that, after I gather this back corner here, I'm going to focus mostly on just skinning. So to showcase the speed at which you could level it up if you focus on just one, we're going to do just skinning. And what that will do for us is get the tier 4 skinning knife unlocked, but also allow us to wear gathering gear so I can showcase that, explain it, and we'll be able to take our first steps into the Roads of Avalon. So now that we've got this back corner, like I said, let's jump into solely focusing on skinning. Now keep in mind these little castles, I guess you could call them, they will only attack you if you are faction flagged as an opposing faction. Sorry. They will not attack you if you're Bridgewatch flagged or if you are just not flagged in general. Now, a reminder, if you're trying to track your progress, you can always see the most recent 4 things that have gotten fame right over here on the right-hand side. So, obviously, we are skinning, so we see our skinning, and then we see our adventurer, our reaver, and then our dual swords. Now, killing gathering mobs does give you combat fame, just at a significantly slower pace. Now, as you can see, mobs are very dense in the blue zone. They're equally dense in the yellow zone. But when you get into red and black zones, and we're not going to focus too much on red zones in this guide because they're just black zone light. And in my opinion, if you're able to go into the red zone, you're able to go into the black zone. So we're going to skip the red zones for the time being. But mobs are not nearly as dense in lethal zones. But that is also because they typically hold a much higher value comparatively. As you can see, we stepped out of the radius for our ox, and what that did was it did put us overweight. Now, what you noticed was when I used my W, I didn't move anywhere. If you are overweight, any ability that grants movement, so the sword's W or bracers, most of those abilities have some sort of distance covering. They won't move you anywhere if you're overweight. You'll also notice that the lower the tier of gathering material, the faster it respawns. So keep that in mind when you're trying to gather tier 8 stuff. It's going to take a lot longer to respawn. Now what we're doing right now is we're looking for spots where the mobs are clustered up, so we can get the most bang for our buck out of basically the response effort to kill and gather. Now, what unlocking tier 4 skinning knife will do for us is, like I said, it will allow us to take our first steps into the roads of Avalon. It'll also mean that we can kill and gather aspects. Now, we can kill and gather aspects now, but I would just prefer to have at least one tier 4 tool unlocked before doing so. And what that will do for us is actually pretty beneficial, because we can gather tier 4 flat materials with tier 3 tools, so we can take advantage of the tier 4 aspects with the current tools that we have. Now, safe zone gathering does not matter how low you get. Does not matter, because there's no risk of you getting ganked, so just don't get knocked. You can get down to 1 HP, kill every mob, and that's still a win. In the lethal zones, you definitely want to keep an eye on your HP. Do everything you can to keep it at least above half, because there's some abilities that have executions. Things like the axe has one, I forget what it's called, but let's see. So the axe line, it is the, not Crystal Reaper, the Infernal Sight has an execute ability. The Bloodletter has an execute ability, as does, I think, the one-handed dagger, but I may be wrong on that one. Now, as you can see here, we were not paying attention, and our skinning knife is now broken. So it has 10% durability, which means we cannot use it. So let's run back to Bridgewatch so we can repair our tools. We will also put everything that we have on us onto the marketplace just to get it out of our inventory, which is about 100,000. Now, durability will become much more tough. Not tough to manage, but actually like tough, stronger, the higher the tools you get. Very rarely do my tier 8 tools, when I'm lethal zone gathering endgame, very rarely do they ever get below 5% a durability strike before I am back to the city at any given time. And the cost of repairs are usually less than 10,000. So it doesn't scale that high either with the higher tiers. Now, Avalonian tools, those get very high with repair bills. So if you are using Avalonian tools in the safe zone, always keep an eye on your durability, because you don't want to be paying to repair a tool and realize you can't afford it, or it takes up 90% of your liquid silver. So really easy to repair and sell all at once. You just click the repair all button here. It repairs everything in your inventory, but not on you. So as you can see, we have some stuff, like the stuff on us, a little lower durability, but it's not going to affect us right now, so we're okay. And then we'll post everything.
My pleasure. I have lots to trade.
Almost sold my axe there. That would have been an oopsie. Alright, so everything is repaired, and we freed up some space in our inventory. So back out there we go. And we'll do the same zone for consistency. Now, unfortunately for me, I don't exactly remember the spot where I killed all those things at. So, gotta do best I can, which is just kind of get everything else. We are now 75% of the way to tier 4 skinning. And we'll lead this moose to my little death pile as well. I'll see if we can lead both of these. We'll let this moa bird live, let it reaccumulate its stacks a little bit while we skin through these, and then we will consolidate again. Now this cat, since it acts as the mob and not the node, should have full stacks. Perfect. Just another example of why, if you're gathering solely in a safe zone, ranged weapons work best. Just less running around trying to tag mobs. Now, we're in Bridgewatch, which is the primary zone for skinning, but this method can be replicated in any other zone for its primary resource, which means Fort Sterling, you can do it for ore, Limhurst, you could do it for wood, Thetford, you could do it for fiber, and Martlock, you could do it for stone. Now, there's a specific reason I recommend you don't do what this guy's doing here, which is just sitting in one zone and gathering every single thing, is because they respawn with less than full stacks, and it's just easier to move around, find full stacked nodes, animals, whatever you're looking for. Less than 10% until tier 4 skinning. So we're almost there. See, this guy is out here using full Skinner's gear because that's what he's looking for. He's just trying to maximize on skinning. Another unfortunate. Can't get any 4.2 because we still only have tier 3. Let's see if we can group together any more. And I do believe with this pile right here, we will have tier 4 skinning. There it is. And of course, you will get the obligatory pop-up to buy premium, which again, I do recommend that you do whenever you are available to. On the Americas, that's the wrong tab, on the Americas premium cost 31.2, which is actually up a couple 100,000 from last night. I think this is the lowest, as I do believe EU and Asia have higher premiums. But with that, we'll pause the timer, head back to town so we can sell, and recap the session. So we will get the skin that we have on the market.
Welcome, friend.
And we're also going to post our tier 3 onto the market. And now we will buy a tier 4 skinning knife. The first tier 4 tool that we can get.
Satisfied?
So, with tier 4 unlocked, what to expect for next Gathering Guide video. So first, we are going to do a full roads breakdown. We're going to explain how to recognize the portals in the open world. Super simple, and I pointed it out before. We're going to learn how to read the portals inside the Road of Avalon, how to know where they lead, what they lead to, how to know if it's a hideout zone, how to know what tier it is. We're going to do a full breakdown, including a understanding of the names and how to not necessarily translate them, but how to recognize based on the name what materials are going to be in what zone. From there, we're also going to optimize our gear. This is a very basic and non-optimized set that I just threw together while we were in the safe zone. So we're going to optimize our gear for dual swords so it can be both survivable and damaging to aspects as we develop in the roads. We'll also showcase, if possible, if provided the opportunity, honestly, enchanted lethal wisps and what they look like inside, going from the roads into the mist. Hopefully, we'll be able to get our fiber, our pickaxe, and maybe even our wood to tier 4 thanks to road aspects. Tier 4 flats have, I think the number is 396 ticks in just that one. So hopefully we can get some fiber and wood, and we can use our tier 3 tools on them if they're just 4 flat. I'm also going to splice this in order to get to our first tier 4 tool. As you can see, it took roughly about 2.5 hours in-game time. So 2.5 hours to get 4 other tools to tier 3 other tools to tier 3, and 1 to tier 4, 2.5 hours in game time in a very non-optimized way. So if you are like to challenge yourself or you are a min-maxer, there are ways to do this faster. But if you're just stepping off the boat and you decide I want to be a gatherer, you slap some stuff on and you want to know how long it takes, only 2.5 hours to get your first tier 4 tool. And tier 4 is where the opportunities really open up. So we're going to see as time goes on how long it takes to get to 5, 6, 7, and 8. So again, all of that will be put together in the next gathering guide. So stay tuned. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.